In the quiet village of Natara, there lived a humble man named Jabari. He spent his days under the sun, tending to his farm, laughing with friends, and enjoying the soft evening winds from the great Oluji River. Life was simple, and Jabari never questioned it. His heart beat, his eyes blinked, and his lungs filled with air, all without a second thought. He was content. But one night, something strange happened. Jabari woke up with a jolt, his hands clawing at his throat. He couldn't breathe. His chest felt squeezed like a tight drum, and no matter how hard he gasped, no air came. Panic wrapped around him like a snake. Just when he thought the darkness would swallow him whole, his lungs opened. He coughed and gulped air greedily, his body shaking, sweat pouring down his face. Sitting at the edge of his rough bed, he pressed his hands against his racing heart. "What is happening to me?" He whispered into the darkness, his voice trembling. The next morning, Jabari told himself it was just a bad dream. He dressed, greeted his neighbors with a smile, and forced himself to walk to the farm. But inside, unease gnawed at him like termites in wood. As he worked, he noticed something terrifying. He was thinking about his breathing. Every breath he took felt heavy, deliberate, unnatural. He watched other farmers laugh and work without effort. Why did breathing now feel like a burden? To him, Jabari's hands trembled around his hoe. Sweat trickled down his back, though the morning was still cool. He dropped the tool and leaned against a tree, gasping. His friend Tunde hurried over. "Are you all right, Jabari?" Tunde asked, concern etched across his face. Jabari forced a weak smile. "I'm just tired," he lied. That night, Jabari lay awake, afraid to close his eyes. "What if I forget to breathe?" he thought, his heart thudding in his ears. He counted each breath, 1, 2, 3, terrified to lose focus. Sleep eventually came, but it was not peaceful. Suddenly, Jabari's body jerked awake. Again, I couldn't breathe. He gasped and clawed at his chest until air rushed in. Tears blurred his eyes. Day after day, the fear worsened. Jabari could no longer laugh with friends or work freely. Every moment was a battle to remember how to breathe. His skin grew pale and his eyes hollow. The villagers started to whisper. His mother, Mama Zuri, noticed her son's fading spirit. One morning, she cupped his trembling hands. "Something is wrong, my son. We must see old Nia, the wise woman," she said firmly. Old Nia was the oldest healer in Natara. She listened quietly, her wrinkled hands feeling Jabari's chest and pulse. "You are strong, child," she said, her voice like dry leaves. "But your mind has trapped your body in fear." Jabari shook his head, desperate. "But I can't breathe unless I think about it." Old Nia's wise eyes narrowed. "Fear grips you, not sickness," she said. She crushed bitter herbs into a cup and handed it to him. "Drink this. It will calm your spirit." Jabari drank the potion, though its bitterness made him gag. He prayed it would help, but days turned to nights and nights to days, and the fear stayed. He could not stop thinking about his breathing. He moved like a ghost, slower each day. Tunde visited him again. "You must fight this, Jabari," he urged. "You have breathed your whole life without thinking. Why do you fear now?" Jabari had no answer. He only knew that if he stopped concentrating, death would snatch him. One evening, desperate for peace, Jabari sat by the edge of the Oluji River. The water flowed gently, whispering secrets to the night air. The soft, gurgling sound calmed him slightly. "Why is this happening to me?" Jabari whispered, pressing his palm against his hammering heart. He didn't hear the soft steps behind him. An old traveler, wrapped in a faded cloak, sat beside him without a word. His face was lined but kind, and his voice was deep and steady. "You seem burdened, young man," the traveler said. Jabari startled but nodded, too weary to hide his pain. The traveler listened patiently as Jabari poured out his fears. When Jabari finished, the man pointed to the flowing river. "Do you see how the water moves?" Jabari frowned. "Yes," the old traveler smiled gently. "Does the river think about how it flows?" Jabari opened his mouth, then closed it again. He had no answer. The river kept moving, whether watched or forgotten. And so the seed of something new was quietly planted inside Jabari's heart. The old man nodded kindly. Because the river doesn't think about how it flows. It simply moves. Like the wind, like the trees, like your breath. Jabari's chest tightened. But if I stop thinking, he said anxiously. What if I stop breathing? The traveler chuckled, a deep, warm sound. Is it really your body that forgets? Or is it your fear playing tricks on you? Jabari swallowed hard. I don't know. The old man placed a strong but gentle hand on Jabari's shoulder. Close your eyes, he said. Stop listening to yourself. Listen to the world instead. Jabari hesitated, then slowly obeyed. He closed his eyes. At first, all he could hear was the pounding of his heart. But then, little by little, other sounds seeped in, the river flowing steadily nearby, birds chirping sweet songs from the trees, leaves dancing in the breeze, distant laughter of children playing in the village, footsteps crunching on the dusty road. Slowly, Jabari's shoulders relaxed. His breathing slowed naturally. He wasn't forcing it anymore. It was just happening. For the first time in weeks, he breathed without fear. When he opened his eyes, the old traveler was gone, vanished like a whisper on the wind. But the lesson remained, shining like a small flame inside his heart. From that day, Jabari changed. He stopped counting his breaths. He stopped forcing his body to remember. Whenever fear tried to creep back into his mind, he closed his eyes and listened. To the river, to the birds, to the laughter around him. And slowly, the fear grew smaller, like a shadow fading at sunrise. His body remembered what it had always known. Breathing was natural. It flowed on its own, just like the river. As Jabari walked home that evening, a strange lightness filled his chest. Not fear, something softer, something like hope. He listened to the sounds around him, the rustling trees, a distant dog barking, women returning from the market, their baskets full and their hearts light. For the first time in weeks, Jabari didn't count his breathing. He simply lived. A small smile touched his lips, hesitant but real. Maybe, just maybe, the old traveler had been right. Maybe he had been tricking himself all along. When Jabari reached his small home, Mama Zuri was waiting anxiously by the door. She pulled him inside and touched his face. "You were gone too long," she scolded gently. "Where did you go?" Jabari sat down, stretching his legs. "I went to the river," he said simply. "I met someone." Mama Zuri's eyes widened. "A friend?" "No," Jabari shook his head. "A traveler. He taught me something strange." Mama Zuri sat beside him, her face filled with concern. "What did he say?" Jabari hesitated, then whispered. "He said, I was making myself sick, with fear." Mama Zuri sighed deeply and cupped his hands in hers. "Jabari," she said, her voice soft but firm, "I have been worried for you. You were once strong like the mighty trees, but lately you have been only a shadow of yourself." Jabari lowered his head. "I know, Mama. I don't want to live in fear anymore." "Then you must let it go," she said. "Let go," he repeated, confused. Mama Zuri squeezed his hands tighter. "Yes, my son. Let go of the fear. Trust yourself. Trust life. Your body knows what to do. You must believe that." Her words sank deep into Jabari's heart, like rain soaking into dry soil. That night, Jabari lay on his mat staring at the ceiling. Fear still whispered in the corners of his mind. What if it happens again? What if you can't breathe? His chest tightened, the old panic rising, but he closed his eyes and remembered the traveler's words. The river, the trees, the wind. He listened, instead, to the night sounds outside, the chirping of crickets, the soft rustle of banana leaves, the hum of distant voices. He took a slow breath, then let go. Sleep came to him like a gentle tide. And for the first time in many weeks, Jabari did not wake in terror. He simply breathed. When morning came, Jabari stretched and sat up. There was no tightness in his chest, no heavy fear clinging to his body, only lightness, only peace. He smiled to himself, a real smile. He dressed quickly and stepped into the fresh morning air. The village bustled with life. Women carrying baskets, men calling to each other. The world hadn't changed, but Jabari had. He walked to the farm with steady steps. Today he would live without fear. As he tilled the earth, he let his hands feel the warm soil. He let his nose breathe in the sweet scent of growing crops. He let his ears fill with the distant laughter of children playing. For the first time in a long while, he was fully present. Tunde passed by, waving happily. "Jabari! You look strong again," he called. Jabari laughed, really laughed. "I feel strong, Tunde," he replied. Tunde grinned. "Good. I was starting to think you had forgotten how to enjoy life." Jabari's smile widened. Maybe, in a way, he had. But not anymore. Each day, Jabari grew stronger. He no longer needed to think about breathing. When fear whispered in his mind, he turned instead to the music of life, the river, the wind, the laughter around him. He flowed with life, no longer fighting it. One evening, Jabari sat with Mama Zuri, watching the sunset paint the sky gold and crimson. "You look like my son again," Mama Zuri said softly, her voice full of joy. Jabari turned. To her, his heart swelling. "I feel like myself again too, Mama." But little did he know, life had one more test waiting for him. One evening, as Jabari sat outside his home, Mama Zuri came to sit beside him. She held a small bowl of steaming yam porridge and handed it over. "Eat, my son," she said gently. "You have been working hard." Jabari took the bowl and smiled warmly. "Thank you, Mama," he said. They ate quietly, watching the fireflies dance in the dark, their tiny lights blinking like stars fallen to earth. After a while, Mama Zuri spoke, her voice low and full of feeling. "I was afraid for you," she admitted, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "You were lost inside your own mind." Jabari nodded slowly. "I was, Mama. But I found my way back." She placed a hand on his shoulder, her touch full of pride. "And I am proud of you," she whispered. As the days passed, Jabari came to understand something important. Fear would always exist, like the rain, like the wind, but it did not have to control him. It was only a feeling, something that would come and go. He would never let it rule his life again. One afternoon, Jabari returned to the Oluji River, this time not searching for answers, just to be. He sat on the riverbank, letting his bare feet touch the cool water. He closed his eyes and listened. The river flowed, the world moved, and his breath, soft, steady, and natural, moved with it. A few weeks later, a stranger arrived in the village, a young man, pale, trembling, his chest rising and falling too quickly. Jabari recognized the fear in his eyes instantly. It was the same fear he had once carried like a heavy stone in his own chest. He walked up to the young man and placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "Are you all right?" Jabari asked. The young man swallowed hard. I feel like I can't breathe," he whispered. Jabari's heart ached for him. He knew that fear. He knew it too well. "Come with me," Jabari said softly. He led the young man away from the busy village square, toward the river where the air was cool and the world was calm. The young man clutched his chest, his breathing shallow and fast. "It feels like if I stop thinking about it, I'll die," he whispered, his voice breaking. Jabari nodded, his own heart heavy with understanding. "I know," he said. "I know." He sat the young man down by the riverbank. "Close your eyes," Jabari instructed gently. "Don't listen to yourself, listen to the world. Let the river breathe for you, let the wind breathe for you." The young man hesitated, fear flashing in his eyes, but finally he obeyed. At first he was stiff, his whole body tight with terror, but slowly, his shoulders began to relax. His breath slowed, his hands unclenched. He took a deep, easy inhale, then an exhale. A look of wonder crossed his face. It's working," he whispered. Jabari smiled. "Because you stopped fighting it," he said. "Breathing isn't something we force. It's something we allow." The young man opened his eyes, tears shining in them, but not from fear, from relief. "How did you know this?" he asked. Jabari turned his face toward the flowing river, then back to the young man. "Because once," he said softly, "I was like you and someone showed me the way." The young man stayed in the village for a few days. Each day Jabari checked on him. Each day he taught him to listen to the river, to trust the wind, to let go. Each day the young man grew stronger, just as Jabari once had. One bright morning, the young man came to Jabari with a wide, grateful smile. "You saved me," he said, his voice thick with emotion. Jabari shook his head gently. "I didn't save you," he said. "I only showed you the path. You saved yourself." The young man nodded, understanding deep in his heart. "I will never forget this." Jabari patted his shoulder with kindness and said, "Then promise me something. When you find someone else lost in fear, show them the way too." As the young man left the village, Jabari stood at the edge of the road, watching him disappear into the distance. And deep inside his chest, he felt something stir, a sense of purpose. His journey had not been only about himself. It had been a lesson meant to be passed on. Fear was not an enemy to be destroyed. It was a shadow to be understood. And through that understanding, life could flow again. Like the river, like the wind, like breath itself. Defeated? No. Fear was not something to destroy. It was only a shadow that could be walked through, and Jabari had found the path. Now he could help others find it too. He smiled as he watched the young man disappear down the dusty road, his figure growing smaller against the golden horizon. Somewhere out there, Jabari knew, more people would need help, just as he once had. Once a traveler had guided him. Today he had become the guide. The cycle would continue. Months passed. The seasons changed. The river swelled and shrank. The harvests came and went, but Jabari never forgot the lessons he had learned by the water's edge. He worked hard on his farm. He spent his evenings laughing with friends. He played with the children, danced during the festivals, and sat under the stars telling stories. And whenever someone came to him, worried, afraid, unsure, he would say the same words: "Trust yourself. Fear is only as strong as you allow it to be." His words spread through the village like seeds on the wind. Soon Jabari was known not just as a farmer, but as a man of wisdom. People would stop him on the road asking for his advice. Even the elders would nod and say, "That young man carries something deeper now." Jabari had once been trapped by fear, but now he lived in peace. Real peace, the kind that dances quietly inside the heart even when storms come. One evening, as the sun melted into a river of gold across the sky, Jabari sat once more by the Oluji River. He listened to the water flowing, soft and endless, and he thought of the traveler, the man who had changed his life with just a few quiet words. Where was he now? In another village, helping another lost soul? Or maybe, just maybe, he was not a man at all. Maybe he had been a spirit, sent by the winds and the water. It didn't matter. Jabari was grateful. He closed his eyes, breathing softly, letting the world move around him. No control, no fear, just trust. The river flowed, the trees whispered, the stars blinked awake in the velvet sky, and Jabari lived, truly lived, free at last. Sometimes fear would still visit. A little. Whisper in the back of his mind, a tightness in his chest, but now Jabari knew what to do. He didn't fight. He didn't panic. He didn't run. He listened. He let it pass through him like a cold breeze. And then, like all things, it would move on, leaving him standing strong, smiling at the world. That night, as the village lamps flickered out, one by one, and the earth grew silent under the watching stars, Jabari sat on his doorstep. He closed his eyes. He took a deep breath, not because he was afraid, but because he could. He smiled softly. He was no longer the man who had forgotten how to breathe. He was the man who had learned how to live. And as the river sang its endless song and the winds carried dreams across the land, Jabari leaned back, feeling the beat of life inside him, simple, steady, and free.